Yes, here we go. It is the Tuesday ticket. The bus is back, and I'm joined tonight by the usual Torags on a Tuesday, Phil McGinley, and of course the resident Torag Reegan Stevenson. I'm in the place of David Logue this week. I think he's trying to come up with a new day or a new time slot or something to make the Tuesday ticket work for him a wee bit better. So that's all good. I was happy to step in because I've not been on much of late. So apologies to those who have been missing the bus recently, but life can get in the way, and sometimes you've just got to park the bus, as they say, and just get on with what you've got to do. But we will still be trying to do as many shows as we possibly can. But please do remember, we all have full-time jobs. We're all busy bees, and this is something that is meant to be a fun hobby that we do on top of work, as sometimes you can't fit it in to our, well, I'd like to say my busy schedule doing things that are useful, but usually it's just getting beat at squash, things like that, you know. Anyway, Regan, what's happening, young man?
Russell, I'm doing very well, thanks. It's so good to see so many people watching. I was bumped into a guy at the gym the other day who said that they watched the bus as well. So there's so many people enjoying it.
Oh, class, man, class. I think my biggest shot was in Tenerife. I don't know if I've said this on the channel already. I was in Tenerife over Christmas, and he's fucking, you know what, Regan, he's looking at me a few times, and I'm like, he's in a Celtic top. I'll just do the generic. I was like, hail, mate. As I walked by, and he's like, you had a haircut? And I'm like, strange reply. He was like, yes. And he was like, Boise. He's like, fucking hell. Before you know it, he's wanting his photo and all that. And it was his missus was rightfully calling him a redneck as she was taking the photo, which that was a sign, man. But that was quite amazing over there to think you can bump into someone that watches the bus as well. Phil, what's happening, my boy?
Oh, as a great man once said, well, Russell, it's a big week ahead.
I thought Regan sounded a bit like that. Did you think Regan sounded a bit like that when he first... Russell.
Well, Russell, it's a huge week. As I said before we came on there, I've been looking forward to this week in particular since full time at Ibrox on January the 2nd, because revenge is in the air, I feel. So I'm buzzing for it. I'm really excited for the week ahead.
Yes, indeed we are. We'll be covering that, and probably the weekend that's been, and any other wee Celtic topic you're wanting to talk about through the day. Remember to get your comments fired in as well. I'm always happy to go in a wee rabbit holes that is suggested by the viewers as well. Remember, all that good stuff means give us a like, give us a share, buy some hair, all that carry on. Remember as well, hit the subscribe button if you've not already. And if you have already subscribed, hit the bell and you never miss a bus, if there is a bus. And obviously head over to piesports.com for the Old Firm Derby if you're watching it from the house, because what a better way to spend half time than with a tasty pastry treat with 12.5% off. Use the code BUS1888. Anything else? Bus members, $1.99 a month. Listen, it's up to you if you want to pay it. You don't get anything extra for it, and we appreciate that at times it being more sporadic, that could be quite frustrating if you are paying that. So there's no pressure on that at all. We really appreciate the support that we do get, and I've had for 3.5 years now, because it's been nearly just under 3.5 years since this bus rolled into town, which is quite mad. Phil's been on it over 3 years now. Regan, you've been on it over 3 years. Wild how time flies, isn't it?
Yep. That's indeed.
It's been great.
Aye, well, it's definitely been fun. Right, okay. Well, the weekend's been, we didn't get a wee PMP, so we'll quickly look at the weekend that's been. Obviously, I was telling you off air, my reasons for not being able to do PMP kind of were related to not being able to watch the fucking game. I'll not disclose the reasons why. You don't want any lawyers watching or anything like that, any lawyers for whatever TV network it was, join the dots. But indeed, it was a game that I think brought a bit of jeopardy, to be perfectly honest with you. Hibs were 15 games unbeaten at that point, on their best run since 1949. Last time they played Celtic, they beat them. And of course, in a cup game, there's no fallback. You get beat, that shoot out. But Brendan incredibly extended his winning run in the Scottish Cup to an astonishing, or is it
20?
20, mate.
Yeah, never lost a Scottish Cup game.
Aye, because it was. Has he ever drawn one?
Did we have any replays? No.
True, Aberdeen. Aberdeen semi-final last year.
Well, but it was one on penalties. I'm
just trying to give that would count as a winner's job. Anyway, it's 20 games he's been in the Scottish Cup. He doesn't taste defeat in it. And with a game, like I say, that did bring a bit of jeopardy, he overcame all that, as did Celtic. And I thought, for a game that did bring, obviously, potential hurdles, Celtic, remember, in these situations are in no wins that you're expected to win, right? Celtic reached Scottish Cup semi-final. You don't get praised for that because we've absolutely normalised trebles, right? So there's no pat in the back for making a Scottish Cup semi-final anymore, Phil, right? But what there is a huge backlash if you go out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a no-win situation you go into these games. Celtic approached the game the right way. They went with the strongest possible team. Unsurprised we had Daizen Maeda on the score sheet. And I just think, from our point of view now, it's not about whether Rangers are in the tournament or not that sets it clear. It's about our mindset when we go into these tournaments is of such a killer attitude. That's what we'd Celtic to win it. I'm sick of hearing pish like, oh, well, the coast is clear now, Rangers are out. What fucking difference has that made for the other Scottish Cups Rodgers have been in? It's made none if they've been in or not, because at some point you've got to beat them as well. If they can't beat Queen's Park, that's nothing to do with how Celtic's mindset is going into tricky games. We went in against the most informed team in the country. We dispatched them. We've got St Johnstone next, a cup specialist side, of course. They, in the famous COVID season where Rangers were the best team in the world, they won more trophies than them that year. 2 cups they won that year, and they won it. They won it again about 10 years before that, 8, 9 years before that. At
2014.
They won it at Celtic Park.
The exit was Celtic Park, so they've got a bit of affinity with the cups. I don't think St Johnstone are any great shakes. You couldn't have paid me enough money not, to have attended Livingston, St Johnstone away. That to me is the idea of hell.
I've got to say, Russell, it was some goal. It was some goal to win it.
Oh, honestly, mate, I was looking at my football books in the corner of the room at that point in time. My left one in particular, going, mind those days, son. Mind those good old days. Just took me back. What a screamer. I mean, again, we make the semi-final with a plum, Phil. We don't expect many pats on the back for it. But like I say, the adversity that we would have faced and the backlash we would have got had it not went that way does deserve, on platforms like this, for us to go, do you know what, boys? Job well done.
Yeah, I always feel that under Brendan Rodgers in particular, whenever there is a wee bit of questions around this Celtic team, it even goes back to the previous era of Brendan Rodgers, whenever there is a few question marks, they always seem to rise to the occasion for the big game. And there was a few questions going into that once again. Hibs, you say, 15 games, 16 games unbeaten, best run in God knows how long, beat us recently. About like similar to what I said at the top of the show about revenge is in the air. I think Brendan Rodgers, he's always a very calm and calculating individual when he's on camera, when he's doing his interviews and whatnot. He always seems very level-headed, but he's got a ruthless guy. He really has got a ruthless streak in him, and he won't have forgot what happened at Easter Road the other week. And it's not even just it's more just it's a blight on his copybook, because again, there's always questions around Brendan's record against Hibs at Easter Road. He got a couple of wins recently, and then we go and lose again at Easter Road. So once again, there's all that, Hibs, we better a bogey team there, we better a bogey team for Brendan. But no, we were absolutely in control on the weekend there. I mean, it was great atmosphere in the stadium. I quite liked that Hibs brought so many away fans through. Fantastic. But we were pretty dominant in the game. We were dominant. We were in control. Similar to a lot of home games I've seen this season, where we've been in control without having to be dominant, where we've still, we've dictated the tempo. Couple of wee half chances here and there for the other team, but ultimately we've seen it off without much fuss. And yeah, onward to Hampden we go again, and Brendan will be looking again, talking about his ruthless streak. He's still got a 100% record at Hampden, so he'll definitely be keeping that intact as well. So it's all good after the weekend there.
Reegan, I've seen you kind of jump in there on the fan situ. I'm not entirely familiar with how the allocation's meant to be sort of split for Scottish Cup games when it's still, when Celtic are at home. Is it there a certain percentage they're meant to give out, or is it you can give up to that, or do we always offer that many tickets and usually they just don't get taken up? I'm not entirely sure, but it was the first time in years we've seen an away support bring as many as, I think it was up to 7,000 away fans. obviously, if you were there, what was your sort of takeaway from that? And is that something that Celtic could have done more often, or is it just generally like a lack of appetite from the visiting teams that that's not happened before?
I think it's probably just a lack of appetite for the visiting fans not wanting to go. I did like it. I don't know if you noticed, Phil, but there was also stewards in between the fans because there was that many away supporters.
Don't see that in a while. Aye.
No, and it was just so brilliant to see, and like I don't know, it was just a great spectacle because a lot of people talk about Scottish football and they talk about Celtic and Rangers, but if you look at a lot of these clubs that see if they start playing well, they can bring great supports as well. So I think it was just good, but thankfully Celtic got the win. I think it was actually like the Aberdeen match. Phil, I think it was 2 weeks on Tuesday we played Aberdeen. I mean, Aberdeen probably should have been 2 goals up early in the first half in that game, and then Celtic just turned on the style. So I think everybody expected that to be a bigger threat than it was, but I think that Celtic team just proved their quality once again, because I think for me as well, like you said about Brendan Rodgers just knows how to do in Scotland. Russell, I mean, see, every time he's here, I mean, obviously there's people that were doubting him last year when he came back, and there was people doubting him when he beat off of Hearts when Bernabé was coming on and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, Brendan Rodgers just knows how to get the job done. I think it'll be interesting to see if he gets back fully in the summer, but surely he will, because he's proven to the Celtic board that if you spend money, because I know a lot of people were quite critical of the angles in maybe August, September, but I think now, guys, he's proven that he's a player, so hopefully they can spend a bit more, like your 10 million more often.
Look, see, the way I see it is, if you want to talk about that aspect in terms of has investing more than what we normally do. I mean, again, Celtic operated at a profit in player trading in both windows this season. Let's have it right. Okay, so it's not like anyone's been pushing the boat out, or anyone's been really holding the Celtic board to ransom here to be really ambitious or anything like that. All Celtic have done is spend a higher percentage of their profits than they normally do, and that's only profits within player trading. That's not me looking at the revenue streams that they've then made from Europe, season tickets, top 20 kit sellers in Europe, etc. Right? So it wasn't all that big a deal, but let's say even to get them to do that does take a bit of persuasion, Phil, right? See if it takes a bit of persuasion to do that. Regardless of whether you want to then analyse Adam Ida's low sort of impact performances and his good ones, was that really 9 million well spent? Or Arnie Engels' goals and assist record this season, or numbers like that, and go, was that really worth it? See, at the end of the day, Celtic spent more money than they normally do, again, out of their player trading profit, I hasten to add, right? But the more they've spent on players coming in, we've had the best European campaign we've had in fucking years at Champions League level. A decade, over a decade. It's no surprise. We're now on course for a treble. We're absolutely miles in front in the league compared to last season. So if it's going to be a difficult conversation because they want to go on a player-by-player basis and say, well, Luke McCowan did well at £1 million, so why can't we just do 5 Luke McCowans in the summer? You just say fuck off to all that nonsense. Let me have autonomy of it. I'll get you a mix again of players that I think that will be really, really decent squad players at good value. I mean, you contrast and compare Luke McCowan as a squad player with Thiago Holm, for example, right? And then you go, but see, when I want my first team ones, you have to now trust that whether you're seeing it with your eyes or not, my squad has outperformed what the Celtic squads have in previous years at the top level, and now domestically absolutely squishing it, which I always think will be a knock-on effect if you're squishing it in Europe, or not squishing it in Europe, if you're competing well in Europe. The evidence is there to go, just do the same again this summer. Do the same again. Don't get nitpicky over 11, Engels 11 million and You didn't have a great fucking August and September. Nobody fucking cares, mate. That squad has clearly been strengthened to the point where Celtic's actually made a fortune as a byproduct of that, because they've made that playoff round in the Champions League and they got an extra 2 games. They've obviously won 12 points, which massively boosted their Champions League income for this season as well.
Mhm.
Their reputation goes up at that stage. And of course, the fallback is you've scooshed the league and got yourself that opportunity for Champions League again next year, and potentially the trebles on as well. It's obviously, to me, abundantly clear that whatever the model was they did in the summer, and whoever was behind the sort of design of it, that formula worked far, far better than the ones the Celtic board try and be the architects of themselves. Do you know what I mean?
But see, the way I'm looking at it as well is that do you guys think because we're so far ahead in Scotland, they might go, oh well, we don't need to spend again. You know, that's the only lingering thing that's that I'm thinking about, because I'm thinking because they might go, oh, well, I mean, I've heard people on Sky and that talk about the bench and all that. So people are saying, like, oh, the bench is strong and all that. So, like, if you've got people like that used to be Celtic players or playing Scottish football that are saying Celtic are strong enough to win the league, are the board really going to spend that much money to then do well? Or I mean,
well, whilst you say that, if other revenues that Celtic can then bring in is their sort of motivations, which I think we've always kind of alluded to, is that they're very driven by as making the most of all revenue streams available to Celtic as possible. Surely you could counter that by going, but hey, how nice was it to be getting £3 million for each of the 3 wins we got in the Champions League? That's had them either paid. How nice was it to get then another £3 million for 3 draws? How nice was it then to get the £5 million bonus for making the playoff? So I think the domestic thing, I do get your point. I think in years gone by, if you want to keep looking that way, that's fine. But I think surely the carrot that's been dangled to them now is, holy fuck, actually, we never realised this before. You know, the boss has been talking about it for years. We never noticed. If you invest for Europe and then you do better in Europe, you make all that money back and the reputation goes up. Fuck. Who thought of that? Who'd ever thought of that? So I think that argument for me, Reegan, right now outweighs the domestic bliss one, if I'm honest to you. And I think they would be more warm to it because, as I say, not because they're like, oh, it's great, the team must be evolving then. I don't think they look at it like that, and I take your point. I think they look at it as though going, that's brought in us a hell of a lot more fucking income than we'd expected. Because, and if you can do that, hey-ho.
Because my own opinion at the moment is, I think Celtic will lose 2 players from the first team, 2 big players. I think the first one will be Rio, and the second one possibly could be Nicholas, or maybe even AJ, because I just feel like that's what Celtic might try and do, because I look at the young guy from Motherwell that just got in the Scotland squad today, and I think Celtic might try and sell Rio and bring in that young man to try and replace him. I just feel like because he's been there 4 years, I think it is now, and I think he's been there pretty long, and I think that he'll be somebody that Celtic will try and offload in the summer.
Phil, it would be no surprise to anyone if come the summer Celtic sell an asset. That's part of the trading model they operate. And I think the key thing now, and Regan's absolutely spot on to speculate as to who it could be. I mean, it will be someone. I think what's important is that Brendan keeps getting that lion's share of that then to reinvest in the team. Because if you're worried about, I think before, if you look at the sale of someone like Kieran Tierney, 25 million quid, let's spend as little of that as possible, because we're not even like considering the income streams of potentially Champions League. We're just looking at Europa, remember, and things like this. So we need to hold on to as much of the the change left from the Tierney, from what obviously you do to replace Tierney, but it was Ball and goalie and Greg Taylor at 2 million each and shit like that, right? Then they're going, right, so we've kept the bulk of that 25 million, bank it. Whereas now it should be like, you sell an asset 25, 30 million, you spend the bulk of that. You don't keep the bulk of it, you spend the bulk of that, and you'll make it all in different revenues and ways that are actually growing the club and evolving it at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, one of the things that we've said loads of times about the board on here is they're not necessarily football men, they're money men, they're businessmen. So, it's a language that speaks to them about the Champions League turnover. Surely there's not much of a conversation to be had if Brendan Rodgers needs to plead his case. It's really simple. We invest like we did this year. The turnover covers everything. It speaks for itself. This season, there's no way that the Celtic board could have sat there watching those games this season, watching that full house at Celtic Park, the atmosphere and whatnot, the revenue coming in, and just thought, we don't want any more of this. Of course they do. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's like we've got to obviously, keep on behaving like a big club. That's the best way to put it. Behaving like a big club, something we always say. And also in regards to what Reegan said about his concerns, will the board, not spend because we are so far ahead? I think there might be some events that are happening on the other side of the city that will keep the Celtic board very alert because they are reactive. They're not proactive.
True.
Now, and of course, if it's true that what's happening at Ibrox is going to be happening, I don't think they'll be spending hundreds of millions of pounds like a lot of their fans seem to think because, financial fair play and all that. But that'll keep the Celtic board alert enough to spend. I don't think we'll sit back, especially if that goes through, and it looks very likely it's going to happen. I don't think the board will sit back and allow that for them to overtake us. So I wouldn't be too worried right now, Reegan, about that one.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Reegan?
I think the Celtic board will clearly want to improve, but I just think, I think if you look at especially the midfield, I think they'll probably try and add maybe 2, but I think people maybe Engels, I think he'll stay 1 or 2 more years. They'll try and get him. So I think it'll be interesting, but I'm just looking to see what they do with the forward position, because Brendan Rodgers said again on Premier Sports on Sunday, I don't know if you've seen it, but he said that even though Maeda's doing really well, that he's not his type of striker. And he was, I like what he was saying. He was saying that, remember what we were kind of saying about the sort of Dembele kind of striker, and I think that's what I think that's what Brendan Rodgers was meaning. That is type of. I think Maeda's doing brilliant, but I think Brendan Rodgers will look to add a striker. And I think that's where the bulk of the money will go.
It did come out of the tail end of the January window that we did make an approach to Slovan Bratislava for that boy Sterlek, I believe his name was, who played against us. But because of the lateness of the window and the structure that Celtic offered with the payments, it didn't happen. But it did come out through the player's own father. And then the director of football for Slovan Bratislava confirmed that Celtic did approach them. So there was a move made for a striker late on. So it does say to me as well, Reegan, they probably will be looking at a striker in the summer. I think that'll be a definite.
There's various areas in the team that will be looked at, obviously, as a whole. It's not just going to be one department or another. I think, as well, one of the reasons to be excited about the summer is one department's already been seriously upgraded. And when I say seriously now, I mean, Reegan, I don't know, I've not had your thoughts on the bus yet on this area of the part, but obviously, the Greg Taylor situ was, it looked to me like Tierney, I've got reason to believe as well. Tierney was who Rodgers wanted since the day he came back to Celtic. He thought there was going to be a chance. And it's took 2 years, but it's actually going to be in a free now. I think he would have liked him on loan his first season. And then perhaps that would have made it easier to have got a permanent deal done maybe last summer. Who knows? But now it's came about that he's joining on a free. That was always going to make it a tricky one for Greg Taylor, who likes to think of himself, and he's been there for years, as Celtic's first choice left back. But what you need to remember with Taylor in that position is consistently throughout his time, there's one way you can spin it, where you can say he's seen off this player, that player. I think there's about 4 left backs he's seen off in his time. That means there's been 4 left backs brought in when Taylor's been there by different managers to try and strengthen that area, right? That's the other side of it, right? There's been when Taylor's been the number one choice, it has been a position managers have wanted to still look at and enhance and improve on. But now we've got this amazing scenario where we've went from devastated that KT we didn't manage to get in the January window to getting 32. I can't even bottle that pattern. I mean, that's just so lazy. 32-year-old Schlupp on loan. As Stephen Mitzi says it himself, Schlupp is a big upgrade on Taylor. I couldn't agree more. And now you've got Schlupp and Tierney for next season. Looking at that, Regan, I'm going, fucking hell. That looks really strong. And of course, the versatility of Schlupp means, and I was alluding to this on Friday with Phil and that such has been the level of performance he's been putting in so far at Celtic, and such is his experience and the physical profile he's got, which few and far between of our players have. I think he's one of those guys that don't just look at him as being the guy to play left back when KT's getting either rested up, managed properly, through certain games, like sit that one out, Rugby Park away, for example. They've still got their AstroTurf next year, I'm not sure, but say they did. That'd be the type of game you go, KT, you can sit that one out, mate, right? We'll put Schlupp in. That's not all he's going to be doing, though, Big Jeffrey. No. I think he's got the opportunity to become a player that Rodgers prefers the look of Celtic with him in it, regardless of where he plays. So if that means KT for the biggest games of the season, undeniably, left back, it's done. That doesn't mean Schlupp doesn't start, in my opinion, if we can carry this on. I think that's where you'll see that getting used. But in terms of that department, it's a huge upgrade. And finally, Regan, I take it you're in the camp where, yes, he's been signed a 6-month loan, but this to me just strikes me as it's a loan because he's in contract with Crystal Palace, but this was very much from both the player and the club. This is almost like it's a 5-month loan because of the Palace situ, but really this is with a view to probably a 2-year deal, permanent, that will be done obviously once you become a free agent. There's no point in trying to rush it right now because we need to keep Crystal Palace sweet so we can get you on loan. Do you know what I mean? But I think come the end of the season, I'd be absolutely astounded if it's not already been sort of the expected outcome between Jeffrey and Celtic that the big man will sign a permanent contract in the summer.
I think as well, because if you remember when January was going on, Brendan Rodgers was talking about, I'd love to see Greg Taylor stay, but now you're not really seeing that anymore. You're not seeing anything anymore, and nobody's even mentioning it in press conferences and media outlets. No, and nobody's saying it. And I think it's because everybody knows that Greg Taylor's going to move on. I mean, Greg Taylor's been a great player for Celtic. He's been brilliant. But I do think that his quality in big matches is not great. That's not me being disrespectful to him, but I just think
all the Celtic managers that have been in charge of Greg Taylor since he joined Celtic agree with you, Regan, because they all tried to sign other players in that position.
And that might be because Brendan Rodgers knows that Greg Taylor's away. It might be, but you just need to look at like the last 4 or 5 games. Greg Taylor's been on the bench. He's been nowhere near it.
If he does start, he's getting subbed off a lot more. Even previously when Valley was there and then Bernabei before. William said it enough times on the Friday feeling with me. He plays a full 90 minutes. He always plays 90 minutes. Why does he always play it? But you're seeing him getting subbed a lot more, and you've also noticed his body language when he gets subbed. He doesn't particularly like it. So that's another clue as well that he's definitely winding down.
I think there's no competition now. I think it'll be Schlupp till the end of the season for anything that remotely resembles a game that matters to Rodgers, to be perfectly honest with you. I do think Taylor will get a run out, here and there, but it's not because they're vying for the role, Phil. I think it's very much there's an order now, and it's Schlupp number one. And do you know what? I said it on the deadline day show that we did. Remember, I said that when one thing about Schlupp's pedigree and all that, it's all there for him to do well. Instead, everything's getting looked at in a negative prism, such as his age, such as the fact he's not been a regular at Palace this season. I mean, but it's all because it's an underwhelming window, and he is now the face of that on deadline day because he's the only signing. I said, so he's not even getting looked at through a balanced sort of viewpoint at all as to what strengths could he bring? What's the pros and cons of this guy? It was all sort of negative and focusing on points that, of course, if you describe them in a certain manner, then they're going to sound negative. But now he's been able to play. Sorry, you go.
I mean, see, to me, that's why I never understand the people that complain about like, I think it was even when we signed Vickers from Bournemouth, people were saying he's always injury prone. He's never really done well, and it was the same thing when we signed Schmeichel and Joe Hart. People were complaining. Even when we're looking at Schmeichel this summer, people were saying it was a cheap option and stuff like that. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes these are the players that you need. You don't always need like a fancy name to go, or like to sell the guy for 25 million. Sometimes you do need somebody that is a great professional. He's a really good player, and he's got great standards as well. I think sometimes because we go, that guy's not good enough. I mean, the biggest example was the striker that Brendan Rodgers had at Leicester, Iheanacho. A lot of people were pulling their nose up and going, that's a guy that's past it. He's never done it. People were saying that to me about Joe Hart 3 years ago. They were saying he got let go for Burnley, he got let go for West Ham, he got let go for Spurs. People were saying that to me. But then Joe Hart comes up, does really well. And I'm not blaming social media for this, but it's just like people need to give players a chance. Because
I think social media is a big contributor to it. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I think that is a big. It's literally a loud minority, pretty much. It feels like everything on social media gets blown up, and people take it as that is the gospel of the whole fan base when it's actually not. So you said poster boy there about Schlupp being a poster boy for underwhelming. A year ago, we've not learned. Adamida was a poster boy for an underwhelming window a year ago because he came out on deadline day, and everyone was like, "Who? A guy on loan for Norwich?" He scored a lot of important goals to get us over the line last season. So it does seem to be a running theme with Celtic and transfer windows. Somebody needs to be the poster boy that we need to vent at, and he sums up an underwhelming window. Always judge them once they pull on the shirt and you see them play for Celtic. That's when you judge them.
There's an imagery as well, right, where I think they look at it, and I know it's sad, but it's just the goldfish bowl mentality. I think when you see a player coming up from England in his 30s, we associate it with signings they'd make. That's what they do. Do you know what I mean? They get in the, and I think there's the idea of it. But what sometimes I think as well, if there's one thing Celtic's lacked in terms of its European competitiveness, has been the fact we've not had enough guys who've been there, seen it, done it. Squads and the best teams of all time, mate. The best teams of all time, if you go through them, are sprinkled. This guy's in their 30s. Right? It's just a fact. See, like, that aspect of it really frustrates me. It doesn't matter how we've came about being able to get a Jeffrey Schlupp, and whether he's only made 26 appearances this season for Palace, and most of them have been sub-appearances in the toughest league in the world, and he's 32. I mean, if these things are silly when you actually look at Celtic's outfield. How many other players have we got in the 30s? Callum McGregor.
Yeah,
Callum McGregor.
Yeah.
Is there another?
No, James Forrest is injured just now, but James Forrest is one bit of he's injured, so yeah.
I'm talking teams, mate. First teams. Teams, the best first teams over the last, and I include, people think it's been a dinosaur. I'm talking about recent times. Real Madrid have won the Champions League, 4 out of the last 6 years, something like that. It's been with guys like Toni Kroos at 31, 32, 33.
Modric.
It's been with
Modric
Modric at
at 39.
34, 35, 36. It's been with
Mhm.
Ramos, the first at 31s, 32s, 33s. Like,
Aye.
that's how it works. The best team, you need a blend. And I think
Mhm.
at times, getting that bit of experience, that bit of know-how, that bit of unfazed by what's coming is a big thing. We'll move on. We'll look ahead, Phil. I'll come at you first on obviously what is a big week. We were talking off air about it, that this is a game you said you've been earmarked, you've been looking ahead to since the Ibrox game. The Ibrox game is a bizarre one, and it looks all the more bizarre when you actually look at their domestic form since then and our form before and after it all. None of it makes sense what happened that day. There is rumours there was a flu and stuff, and I love the fact if that is the case, we've never used them. Good. But I think that was a freak of a result, a freak show of a performance from Celtic that we won't see again. And if anything, it's given a game that doesn't change the direction of travel of anything. And let's face it, it's the 11th. It's the 11th of March today. Come the weekend, what will that be? The 15th of March or Sunday games on Sunday.
We play 16th, Sunday the 16th.
Right.
Yeah.
16th of March. And there's 2 derbies to go, and neither of them impact the title. Right?
Yep.
It's how far ahead we are. But I think like you do, because of that result in January, it's added that layer of importance, that layer of maybe a bit of pressure, that layer of intensity to that game because of what happened Tuesday in January. And do you know what? That's a good thing for us because it's all said and done already in the league at this early stage.
Aye, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier about just Brendan Rodgers and his sort of ruthless streak that he's got. As soon as that game ended that day, to me, I was like, that won't happen again. Like, he'll make sure that doesn't happen again. I mean, remember his reaction the game right after it? We played St Mirren and he had that quite infamous outburst where he began ranting about the fans singing the Kieran Tierney song.
Tierney and Jota.
But that was all a product of what had happened a few days before, where for the first time, even including his first spell as Celtic manager, where the media and that was starting to ask some questions about his tactics. You know, has he lost it really? Is he starting to come on, going to catch up to him here? Obviously, that turned out not to be the case. But I got to Brendan, and I thought, I think after that result, he again will not want that to happen at all for us. So for me, as soon as it ended, and when the dust started to settle, I was like, no, see when the next one rolls around, and especially when we've seen their results, the way that they've the way they've transpired over the months since then, it's just I'm just waiting there with bated breath for it. I'm just like, oh, this is going to be good. And as I said a couple of Fridays ago, I'm happy that there will be a contingent of away fans there. I will be very happy because again, if we do what I hope we can do on Sunday, it'd be good to see them sitting in the corner, stuck there, miserable and angry about it. I'll enjoy that very much because I just think that Rodgers again, we talk about the whole stereotypical pin it up on the dressing room wall and all that. I don't think Brendan needs to do that. Again, we've seen little snippets, little clips here and there, Russell, from behind the scenes stuff, how he does his team talks and all that. I think he'll be very much to the point on Sunday. The last thing he'll say to me is, just remember what happened on January 2nd. Just remember what they did to you. Don't allow that to happen again. And I think he'll drill it into them.
Definitely, Regan. I think as well, we go into this game, right, against the side that normally and I can't deny it, I've been envious of at times with their European stuff, right? Not domestically, and I get that, right? But you watched how they handle themselves here. And by the way, they're in the process of doing it yet again. But I'm zen this year because I look at a Celtic side going into this game, not against a Rangers side on the back of a fixture I would love to be involved in, but a Celtic side that actually this season combined striving in Europe to do better, actually impressing a hell of a lot in Europe, getting some really noteworthy results, and being really unlucky to actually about the competition when all was said and done, to a side that's just smashed by a Leverkusen who were unbeaten last year 3-0 in the next round. And so I go into it without that feeling this time of going, it's not just domestic bliss. The Rangers are a plaything and domestically, and we always seem to rise for that. I'm actually going into it going, no, this is us against the Rangers side, annoyingly, but the reality is, yet again doing well at European level, but they're coming up against a Celtic side who's smashed them domestically yet again, absolutely out of sight in the league, beat them in the League Cup final, didn't even get a chance to say hello in the Scottish Cup this year, but who can also look at their European efforts this year at the highest level and say, do you know what? We've got a European campaign behind us as well that we're pretty proud of, albeit we might not still be in it. But our achievements this year also have been fantastic. And I like going into it with that perspective as well. What's your thoughts with all those points?
It's been a pretty perfect season so far. I mean, like you said, it's been great in Europe, and to be 16 points clear at this stage of the season is quite really great, because I said to you before we came on air, I just feel like I'm less of a pressure on this. You know what I mean? Well, obviously, there's great pressure to win the game because we want to beat them every time, but it's just great to go in there with kind of 16 points ahead, 55th title. You know what I mean? It took them years to win the 55th title, and we're strolling to it at the beginning of March. So it's just great, and obviously things are going well. Celtic are playing really well, and obviously we're going to do I think it's a 6th treble in 9 years. Hopefully so. No, things are going well.
Going into the game, Phil, again as well, because of that Ibrox sort of result, it takes away that level of sort of complacency creeping in or anything like that. Nobody's that's a right that's a wrong that still needs to be corrected. You know what I mean? What happened at Ibrox? So again, there's none of that going into it. But if we look at Celtic as a side that's done well in Europe this year, which they are, and then we look at Rangers' best performances this season, which have been against sides that are decent in Europe, which they have.
Yep.
Is this the type of fixture? Forget it's the SPFL, right? Forget it's that fixture. Is Celtic almost the Celtic away the type of game? Are we the type of team that actually they would punch above their weight in against Europe? Almost the perfect sort of side that they can actually sit and just try and counter-attack when they can. I think it's mad that we're almost at exact comparable level of the sides they seem to bizarrely have such random joy against in Europe. I say random, I mean it's often at Europe. That's food for thought as well, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I can see the point you're coming from, but the difference I think isn't. This is one of my theories as to why I think they have had the success they've had at the Europa League. You know what they've done in the last 5 or 6 years. I think one, they are obviously built for counter attack, so they are quite happy to sit in, 10 men behind the ball, hit you on the counter, whatever. I also think a lot of teams that draw them just genuinely don't take them that seriously because Scottish team will scoosh them.
Okay.
You know, I do think that happens. I think Jose Mourinho, I mean, it's safe to say Jose Mourinho's quite a cocky manager, to say the least, but he can back it up. I mean, he's obviously done it. It would surprise me if there was a wee bit of him there that was like, Rangers, whatever. There's a difference is though from us. Then you're right about the level we are. We are that type of team that they play in the Europa League. The difference is it's us, and we know all about them. And I think the rivalry will not allow us to have that wee bit of complacency. But I do think part of the reason they've been successful at that level is I think just a lot of teams genuinely just roll up and think, we'll scoosh this. The Scottish team, no problem at all. I know that when they had their run to the Europa League final, I know Lothar Matthäus on German TV when they beat Leipzig, he was, before they played Leipzig, he was just like, Glasgow Rangers, even though they beat Dortmund in a previous round, he was like, nah, no chance. They're second behind. At that time, it was Ange's first season. Oh, they're about 9 points behind a mediocre Celtic team. Leipzig will scoosh this team. They'll beat them easily. And then, I think that's the attitude for a lot of these teams in Europe. But we won't have that attitude because, again, the rivalry is what it is. But in terms of the level of team, you are right. I do think we are that type of team that they do well against. They do punch above their weight. But I think with us, we won't allow it to happen. And, we'll be on it, I think, and shut them down with any counter-attacks that they try.
Reegan?
I think in terms of this match, I think Rangers will try and do what they did to Fenerbahce. I think they'll try and play that system that they played, the five at the back. And I just feel like
That's what I mean.
I just feel like the waves of attack that we'll have and the players are going to be totally up for it. I mean, I just think that we'll be too strong for them. And also, I think that psychologically, when you look at the amount of drummings that James Tavernier's took in these matches, I mean, as much as he, let's say, it doesn't affect him, it must affect him because he goes to Celtic, he goes close to Celtic Park every time and gets beat. And you watch that game against Motherwell. I mean, he loses the ball and then the guy scores. So I just feel like my head I'll be looking from on Sunday, and Tavernier wouldn't be able to sleep on Saturday night. So I just feel like we'll be too strong for them. I do think they'll have moments in the game, but that's where we get people like McGregor who can dictate the game. But see the interesting connotation to the game here, right? Is you meant I know Paul remember, but remember the last time that Barry Ferguson told his players to get close to McGregor? Do you remember that, Paul?
That was he the Alloa manager when we?
Yep, it was
the broken the face mask he had to wear. Yeah.
Yep. So, but Barry Ferguson asked his players to get close to Callum McGregor, and then it resulted in the injury. So
yeah,
I'm sure because I think Barry knows just how McGregor can dictate a game. So I think I think McGregor will be a big player in the game, and I think ultimately their weakest point is the defence. And obviously last year they said that Jack Butland was the best things in sliced bread, but he's not been great this year. I mean, he could hardly play for Paul Juniors at the moment.
Or Turkey Al Sheikh. I think you might be giving him a phone soon. Knockout merch.
But, you know, but people
were deciding, mate, not to play football.
People were actually saying it was probably a blessing that he knocked that proper out because he's been rotten this season.
Yeah, well, that may well be. I think we'll finish it there, but it's just before we go, Reegan, I know that you're obviously not going to be on the show till the weekend.
Yep.
You know what that means.
I'll say 3-1.
3-1. Do you think we'll concede 3 at home domestically this year? Is that another one of those records that Schmeichel might have a bit of a Rodgers whiff about him where he goes, that'll piss me off if I lose another domestic goal at home?
I think I think he'll be annoyed, but I think they'll score, but I think we'll win by 3 goals to 1. I think we'll be too strong, but I think they'll have some moments in the game.
They'll have moments,
probably from a free kick, like maybe a Johnstone or a header, maybe something like that. But I just feel like Jota might put a wee chip over a certain Rangers goalkeeper. Obviously with
Jota, I fancy big time. Yeah, Jota, I think he's one of those magical players who tends to know what the scripts are, and he likes to kind of be involved in them, Phil, doesn't he?
His goal in that 4-0 game a few years ago was absolutely magnificent. That lob from the acute angle as well to have beat the goalkeeper the way he did, first time touch. It was a great pass for Riley as well.
Did he not score another one from a really difficult angle as well? That was almost like Martin-esque.
Yeah, he went around McGregor. McGregor had
that was like a game.
That
angle was crazy as well.
Intercepted the ball and went round McGregor. People say he retired Alan McGregor that day, but yeah, he couldn't catch him and he just went round him and slotted it in. That was a 3-1, 3-2 game. 3-2, I think it was.
3-2.
He scored when me and you were there, Reegan.
So he did.
1-1. 1-1, I think it was.
Back post, sleeping again.
Yeah, I'm confident. I am confident for the weekend, but we will pick up again. I think the judge is back on Thursday, so I think it'll be getting a wee bit more. The intensity will be growing by then as well towards the fixture, and there'll be some sort of stupid headline to discuss by then, or some pundit coming out with some sort of nonsense.
We'll send Conor out to do a carpool maybe tomorrow to fill in the Wednesday void, because we don't usually do anything on a Wednesday. We'll get Conor to maybe record a wee carpool and have a show each day. So that'd be quite good for the build up for it. We could do that maybe.
See how a lot of people talk about if Celtic win or Rangers win, it puts a marker down for next season. Do you guys think about that, or do you just because I don't think it will genuinely, but I think a lot of people do talk about that, like, it puts a marker down for next season, but I don't think it genuinely does.
No, I think we've seen this a million times now. It's just going round and round the same pish. You know what I mean? Change manager, upturning results. Fucking get the fear all summer that they're fucking back, and then the season starts, and when it's close in the league, they do shit. Then we go miles ahead. They start doing a wee bit better, or they set the manager. It's just kind of the way it fucking goes now.
There was one a couple of years ago where they beat us 3-0 at Ibrox, and I remember at the end of the show, Ailey Barber signed off the show saying, Rangers now have the bragging rights for the summer. Keep in mind, Celtic then wrapped up another treble literally 2 weeks later. And it's like, come on, man. I mean, I know she works for Sky and they've got to try and sell the product. That there's a real race on now in Scotland. Rangers will be back next season. It usually results in the same thing as Russell just said there. So, yeah.
They had the bragging rights for a treble of minutes. That was about it.
That's it. Very much. Very much.
Anyway, that's us. Thanks to everyone who's joined. Live chat's been busy as well. Good to be back on the bus. Regan, great to do a wee show with you. It's been so long, mate. So fantastic.
Phil,
thanks as ever, my man.
Yes.
We're here. Are you going to hit the button, Phil?
I shall indeed. So I'll catch you guys. See you.
Guys.